Today, guys, we will begin our journey on our trip into the world of Game of Thrones. Now, before I begin, guys, I have not seen any of the shows and I have not read any of the books. So I am going into this series completely fresh. Now, what my plan is to do is go ahead and recap and review each of these episodes. So without further ado, let's get right into the first episode, Winter's Coming. Here we go. Now, the show starts off with a bang. 3 men go out into the woods to track some wildlings. And in doing so, one man splits off and he finds a bunch of torn apart bodies. When he turns around to show the other 2 men, they are murdered and he is left being chased. Later on, this man would be found wandering in the middle of nowhere and he has been marked as a deserter. Because once you make an oath to the wall, you can no longer break that oath. You belong there. You have no other life. So this man is marked as a deserter, and when he arrives in Winterfell, Lord Ed Stark needs to be there and gives him his punishment for abandoning his post and beheads the man. And Ed Stark's bastard son Jon tells young Bran, you need to watch, you need to make sure your eyes are open. Father will know if you close them. And it's intense. While the sons are out with their father, they come across a dead direwolf that had 5 puppies. Jon actually suggests that each of the puppies go to each of the Stark children. Since there are 5 puppies and 5 Stark children, it works out perfectly. Seeing as how it is the animal that is on the family crest. Then we flash over to King's Landing, where we see that Jon Arryn, the Hand of the King, has been killed. He is dead, and Cersei and Jaime Lannister, the Lannister twins, seem to be overjoyed about it and don't seem to be worried in the least bit. We find out that Ned thought of the late Jon Arryn as a father figure, and we also find out that the king has been on his way for 1 month riding on the King's Road to get here to ask Ned to become the new Hand, which means he would go back to the capital with the king and leave his family in the north. We would eventually get some bro time between the king and Ned, and we would find out that the king was originally supposed to marry Ned's sister, but she died. This would lead him to fight his war for her in her memory, and he would take the Targaryen's kingdom. This is when we meet Tyrion Lannister, who's actually in a brothel in Winterfell, having himself some fun with a whore. At this time, his brother Jaime would join him at the brothel and ask him to accompany him to meet the Starks because he can't stand to be around that family alone. He leaves him to dine on some appetizers, which happen to be a bunch of whores. Then we flash to Daenerys Targaryen and her brother Viserys. According to the way the bloodlines run, Viserys is supposed to be the rightful king. His father was the king that got overthrown by King Robert, thus he is the true heir. He goes to the point of selling his sister off to the Dothraki king, Khal Drogo. And in turn, Khal Drogo will use his forces and his massive army to help Viserys and his sister take back the throne for the Targaryens. Put the dragon back on the throne. You could see that she's not too into this. She actually tells her brother that she doesn't want to be his queen. This is when it gets dark. He actually tells his sister that, little sister, I would let his entire army fuck you. That's all 40,000 soldiers if it meant I could have my throne back. That's pretty savage. I mean, for a brother to say that to his sister, holy crap. I hate this guy already. Then we flash back to a party at the King's Honor that's happening back at Winterfell. And we see that Queen Cersei is having to sit there and watch King Robert just whore his way through all the women in Winterfell. And she just has to take it like a champ. We find out because Jon is the bastard child of Ned Stark, he is not allowed to dine in the presence of the king. This is when Jon runs into Tyrion Lannister. And we get to know this character a little bit more. He calls Jon a bastard straight up, over and over and over, as Jon calls him a dwarf, an imp, and everything in between, and he tells him that to my father, all dwarves are bastards anyway, so I feel where you're coming from. Sansa Stark actually approaches the queen at the party and tries to get to know the queen and small talk her, but the queen only has one thing in mind and asks her the one thing that embarrasses the hell out of her and asks her, girl, have you begun to bleed? And she just stands there with a look on her face like, it was funny. Later that night, Stark and his wife are in their room and they actually get a message delivered directly to them. And the message says that the Hand of the King was murdered by the Lannisters. Lady Stark quickly covers this up and burns the message because if anyone was found in possession of that message, it could cause them to die. Now they know that they really need to help the king because he's in trouble. Then we go to the most insane wedding I've ever seen. The Dothraki wedding between Daenerys and Khal Drogo is actually a sight to see. There's food, music, dragon eggs, people having sex in the middle of a big old circle, and a bunch of crazy pass this girl around sex. Then after the wedding was over, Khal Drogo and his new bride head to the beach where Khal Drogo takes the consummation. And yes, she cries the whole time. Pretty intense. So then we get the coup de grace of the episode. We get to see little ninja Bran Stark climbing up this big old long tower. He hears someone up there. It sounds like they're having sex, so he goes up to see what's going on. And who does he find? He finds the queen, Cersei Lannister, right there on all fours getting railed by her brother Jaime. God, Jesus. And what happens? They catch him, and what do? Just like I thought they would. Jaime pushes his ass out the tower. Little boy pushes him out of a tower. Little boy, and that's how the episode ends. Boom, splat, Bran. This was a great episode, and it really gave you a rundown of a lot of the major characters and kind of set the scene very well. I really did enjoy this episode quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and rate this one with a solid 9 out of 10. So guys, what did you guys think of the first episode of Game of Thrones, and are you excited to join me along this journey? I will be doing these videos as fast as I can, probably a couple a week, but this is episode 1, Winter's Coming, of season 1 for Game of Thrones. I will see you guys next time for episode 2. Alright guys, peace out.